Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to another edition of Through the Fire. I am your host, Ryan Wickline, and today we're joined by a very special guest. She is the author of the Leonardo Trait, Ms. Angie Dixon. How you doing today,
Hi,
Angie?
Ryan. Hi, Ryan. I'm great. How are you?
I'm doing so-so. Like I said, I'm starting to get a cold. That's Ohio weather. So I'm kind of excited to kind of hear about your book that you wrote.
Great. I'm excited to tell you about it.
So the number one question the audience is probably wondering, who is Angie Dixon?
Okay, so as you mentioned, I'm the author of The Leonardo Trait, which is a book about profound creativity. As I've been working on this book for 20 years, I started writing it in 2006. I wrote the first edition in 2006. This is the fourth edition coming out January 27th. And I've always been writing about profound creativity. I wrote a little bit in the first three editions about ADHD because I knew that I had ADHD. And 2 years ago, I was diagnosed with autism, and I realized that I had really not been writing completely the correct book. That a lot of what I was saying about profound creativity had a lot to do with neurodivergence and autism. And ADHD is also a form of neurodivergence, but I didn't realize the autism connection when I first started writing the book. So this new edition really has to do with not just profound creativity, but also the neurodivergent connection that a lot of people who are profoundly creative are also neurodivergent.
Huh. What inspired you to write the book?
Um, I was visiting my best friend in another state in 2006, and I went to visit her because her daughter was at a play. So the three of us were sitting around after the play talking, and my friend Judy said, "What have you been reading lately?" And I told her about a couple of books on creativity I'd been reading that really didn't hit quite right for me. The first one suggested having a file cabinet for each project, and I am known for having a lot of projects. I would have had to have a warehouse for all of these file cabinets. And I said that just wasn't it for me. And the other one really talked about more of what I was interested in. It talked about the Renaissance soul, and she mentioned Ben Franklin as a model for creative people. And that was a little closer, but it wasn't quite right. And my daughter's friend Carrie said, "Well, what do you think the model is? Who is the model if it's not Ben Franklin?" And without thinking about it, I said, "Leonardo da Vinci." And then I said, "I think there's a set of traits, including a multi passionate nature and extreme curiosity and a tendency to have a lot going on and kind of these things. I think that there is a Leonardo trait of profound creativity." And my friend said, "You have to write that book." And I was already a writer, and I had written a few books on various things, including ADHD. So I sat down the next morning and started writing this book.
Nice. So, what was probably the biggest challenge you faced when you were writing it?
The biggest challenge really was that when I started writing, people weren't talking about these things. They weren't talking about a multi-passionate life. They weren't talking about people being different or being more of who you are as a creative person. I mean, now it's hard to swing a cat without hitting somebody talking about neurodivergence or creativity or, being true to yourself. But when I started, that really wasn't a thing that people were talking much about. And certainly there weren't, as I just said, there weren't a lot of books about it. The books on creativity really weren't, they were fine for what they were, but they weren't for people like me.
Yeah, there was a lot of people kind of lump everything into like a cookie cutter system where they expect you to be this one way and that's it.
Right. And one thing I say to neurodivergent people is we tend to kind of try to be like we think other people are. And we look at other people and we say, oh, I need to be like they look. I say it's like judging your insides by other people's outsides. I need to be like they look. And one thing is that nobody is together as they look. Nobody has it all together. And the other thing is that we are not broken neurotypical people. We are absolutely perfect neurodivergent people. We are not built to be like everyone else. We are built to be a little bit different, a little quirky, a little unusual. And that's what makes us so brilliant, I think, is that we're very curious. We have a lot of different ways of thinking. And I think it really makes us a valuable part of the world.
Yeah, because your brain operates at a different level than a lot of other people's. Like the way it thinks, sometimes it's here and then there.
Exactly. We don't think in straight lines. I like to say we think and we work in spirals. We have different things that we come back to over and over, but we kind of spiral around in our thinking. And I think that we have a lot to add to the world.
Yeah. So why Leonardo of all people?
Um, for one thing, he had a lot of ideas that he never finished. If you look at his notebooks, which I have, I used to own a copy of a book called Leonardo's Notebooks. And if you look at his notebooks, he came up with so many amazing ideas. Like he invented the helicopter before man even really thought that it was possible, but he invented this flying machine. And I think Leonardo is a great model because there are so many things that he thought of and didn't finish. And the people I call Leonardos start so many things. And of course, we don't finish everything, but we start so many different things and we finish a lot of them. Just some things we just lose interest in or we get done with them. We say, I'm not going to finish this because this is not going where I want to go. And I think Leonardo is a great model because he was so brilliant and he had so many ideas and he abandoned so many of them, but he finished so many great things.
Yeah. Like he's definitely on the list of one of the greatest painters of all time.
Yeah. And he was also, he came up with so many really great ideas and different inventions. And he was just, I think, way beyond his time.
Yeah. Why do so many creatives feel too much and how do they break out of that lie?
I think one thing is that we have so many ideas and we are always working on something new, and it's easy to feel like we're overwhelming other people, to feel like we're too much because we're explaining all these things or we're doing all these things or we talk too much or we have too many ideas. And really, the people who love us because we have so many ideas and because of who we are. They don't love us in spite of all our ideas or all our projects or all our thinking. They love us because of who we are. And it's really, I think, important to realize that who we are is not too much and it's also not enough. Who we are is perfect.
Yeah. Why do multi passionate or multi hyphenate creatives struggle with traditional productivity systems?
Well, as I mentioned, a lot of times we work in spirals, and traditional productivity and especially hustle culture push us to finish something and then move on to something else, or to work in really tight spaces to get this done and then do this. And we really don't work well like that. For instance, I'm hosting a summit in a couple of weeks and I have a lot of work to do. And I took the afternoon off because I was just reaching a point where I realized that I wasn't working at my best this afternoon and that I needed a little rest. And fortunately, I work for myself and I can do that. I can take the afternoon off. And this evening, I will go ahead and do the work that I had scheduled for this afternoon. And traditional productivity says you sit down at 9 o'clock or 8 o'clock and you start working and you work until 8 o'clock, until 5 o'clock or 6 o'clock. And you work straight through, you take a lunch, but you work these set hours, and that's how it's supposed to be done. For neurodivergent and creative people, sometimes we need to work a different schedule, take a break, and come back and finish things. And quite often we are working on so many different things at once that it's hard for us to fit into a regular productivity routine.
Yeah, and you probably like one day you might want to work on this because you're feeling you got an idea for this instead of what you're supposed to be working on. Like, oh, I got an idea for this. I can go finish this.
Yeah, and a lot of times I will do that. I will say, okay, I can work on this, but then I have to come back in the afternoon and finish what I actually was planning to work on today. But if I get a really good idea, I will try to find a way to work on it as well as anything that's coming up that does need to be done. But I always try to set up my schedule so that I have at least a little bit of time each day to work on something that's not on the schedule. I have big holes in my schedule for things that I might want to work on that I might not even have thought of yet. But later in the week, I might really want to be working on that.
Nice. Yeah, I even talked with somebody else who I interviewed one point in time. They were telling me that every person has like different a schedule of when they're more creative, when they're get more work done, when they should work out. Like each person's body and mind is different that way, and that corporate life kind of just sucks it all out of them because of the set scheduling.
Yeah, a lot of people really don't work well in a corporate setting. And a lot of people don't have any choice. But if you have any choice at all, you should work with your rhythms. I just said I'm going to work this evening. I generally have a lot of energy around 7 o'clock. you know, I have energy in the morning and I have energy late afternoon and evening. And between about 10 and 2, I try to schedule things that don't require a lot of thought, that I can just like putting emails into my email server or things like that that don't require me to do a lot of creative thought because it's just not happening. I can do the grunt work then, but I can't think.
Yeah. What are some changes society can make to help neurodivergent people fit in a little bit more?
I think flexible scheduling, a lot of places are coming up with more flexible scheduling that as long as you're getting the work done, we don't care if you work between, 7 and 4 or between 10 and 6, or if even, you know, if you get it done early and you leave, as long as the work is done, we don't care. I think we need more of that and less of this idea that having your butt in the seat between 8 and 5 is absolutely the only way to get things done. I think also I hate to see all of the return to office because I think a lot of neurodivergent people and a lot of people in general really are more productive and get more work done and get are more effective when they can work from home. They're in a comfortable environment, they're in a comfortable chair, there aren't a lot of people talking around them. I just think that those two things, a remote work and a flexible schedule, are really good for a lot of people, and especially for neurodivergent and creative people.
Yeah. Well, then you get in the office setting, in the corporate world, and people just want to sit there and talk about nothing and busyness instead of actually doing the work and being creative and getting things done.
Oh, absolutely. There's so much distraction in an office, people talking to you or people talking to each other. And I just, um, my husband works from home and he has his own office in our house. And no, we don't bother him when he's at work. It's just like if he were at the office, he's at work. And he says that he really prefers it because there aren't the distractions that there are in an office. He's left alone in his own little space, and it's not people walking around asking him questions. And he does have a lot of meetings and that type of thing, but the distractions of an office are not something he has to deal with anymore. And he really likes it.
Yeah. You were diagnosed with autism later in life. What surprised you the most and what changed afterwards?
What surprised me the most was how I didn't see it, actually. My son was diagnosed with autism about 8 years ago as an adult. And we basically share a brain, but I really thought, oh, that's interesting. Jack's autistic. I should have seen that. And I didn't, for years, it never occurred to me that, oh, maybe I'm autistic too. And I had a couple people in the couple years before I was diagnosed, I had a couple people ask me if I was autistic. And the first time I said no. And the second time I said maybe. And then 2 years ago, I decided I just wanted to know because I was curious and I had the opportunity to get diagnosed. And so I went and I got tested. And what changed the most for me was that I realized that my entire life of being different and a little strange, a little weird, that was all autism and that there were other people like me. I always felt like I was just strange and different and that I was just an unusual person. I didn't know there were other people like me. And it was very lonely, feeling like no one really understood what it was like to be me. And a couple of years ago, after I was diagnosed, I discovered a community on Discord of neurodivergent people, and it was the strangest thing to go into this community, and there were people saying things that were exactly things like I would say, or like I would think, doing things that I would do. And I thought, this is just miraculous that I have people, that there are people like me. And that was the biggest change for me, was realizing that I wasn't alone.
Huh. So it was like more of an aha moment of, hey, now I kind of see why I think this way, and I'm not very different. There's more people just like me.
Right. There's so many people like me. And one thing I am really hoping for is that through my work that more people will realize, hey, maybe I'm neurodivergent and maybe there are people like me and maybe I don't have to be alone.
Yeah. I think the world needs more of that where it's okay to be different.
Exactly.
How did autistic masking shape your life and what finally pushed you to unmask?
Okay, so masking really is performing being neurotypical or performing being a person like we think other people are people. And I spent most of my life trying to pretend, at least at work, at school, that I was what I thought of as normal. And now I know that those people were neurotypical, and there really is no such thing as normal. But I spent most of my life, especially in a corporate environment before I started my own business, of trying to be like I thought other people were, as I mentioned earlier. And even as a freelancer and running my own business, I tried to keep regular work hours, and I tried to, do what I thought other people were doing to succeed. And it was very hard on me. It was extremely difficult for me to work in regular work hours, to do what I thought other people were doing to succeed. And once I finally I was I was injured a few years ago, and I'm disabled. I have some mobility challenges. I use a walker or wheelchair. I'm in bed most of the time, and that just immediately stopped my freelancing career. And I didn't work for several years before I started writing again, rewriting the Leonardo Trait. So for me, and I don't recommend becoming injured as a way to start completely unmasking. But for me, that was one of the best things that could have happened to me, because I stopped working 80 hours a week. I stopped working at all for a while. I started thinking about what I wanted instead of what was going to be required of me in a work environment, because I was no longer working. And I started really thinking about, just each day, what would improve my day to day life? What would make me feel better in this situation? And I started, one thing I started doing was wearing funny t shirts. This one, it's the Wicked Witch, or the Wicked Witch's sister, the original witch, and these are ding dongs. It's Ding Dong, the witch is dead. So I started wearing funny shirts all the time, and then now I don't own anything except funny shirts and concert T-shirts. And that was a real change for me, because I used to get up each day and get dressed for work, even though I was working at home. I would put on jeans, and I would put on a nice shirt. And so when I became disabled, I thought, I don't have to perform anymore. I don't have to wear what I think other people would wear. I don't have to do what I think other people would do. I don't have to work with clients. If I want to start writing again at some point and I feel up to it, I can do that. Um, for me, unmasking was really happened coincidentally with getting hurt. For other people, I recommend finding small ways that they can unmask in their own lives. And especially at work, I recommend going really slow and doing really small things, like starting to tell more jokes, or starting to dress a little more like you would really like to dress, but within the dress code. Maybe being a little more colorful, maybe wearing, if you can wear t-shirts on casual Friday, if you like funny t-shirts, maybe start wearing a funny t-shirt if that's allowed. Um, in your own life, I think unmasking with the people that love you and realizing that they don't want you to try to pretend to be a real person, to be a neurotypical person. You are a real person, but I mean, you might feel like you're trying to be a real person. Nobody wants that from you. The people who love you because of who you are.
Yeah. So, how freeing and liberating was it when you finally unmasked?
Oh, it was like having a different life. It was, I had always been stressed all the time, and a little bit, not raging angry, but there was always a little bit of tension that sometimes came out as irritation. I would get frustrated easily, or I would get a little irritated at things that really now wouldn't bother me, like traffic. You know, my husband and I were in the car earlier. We were just going for a ride because I can't drive. He takes me for a ride every now and then. And we were going for a ride, and he said, I wouldn't have gone this way if I knew how bad the traffic was. And I said, well, we're not going anywhere. It doesn't really matter. We can sit in the traffic because we're just literally riding around. And before, I probably would have agreed with him that, yeah, I wouldn't have gone this way either if I'd known. But things that used to frustrate or irritate me, I have so much more energy now to not let those things irritate me. I'm much less stressed. I'm much calmer and easier going. I feel like I'm a different person now that I have completely unmasked.
That's nice. What is autistic burnout and how is it different from regular burnout?
Okay, autistic burnout is really more of a physiological thing. Regular burnout, people get burned out professionally and they need some time off or they need to rest or they need to do something different. Autistic people, burnout is really kind of losing yourself because you've been pushing so hard at trying to be what you think you're supposed to be. It can look like depression a lot, like losing interest in things and not being able to get interested in doing things you used to do. And sometimes people with burnout do get depression, and I recommend that people get screened for depression if they have any symptoms of something that looks like depression, they should get screened. But I also say that autistic burnout can look like depression. It can, to other people, it can look like laziness because we need to just back off and not do some of the things we've been doing. But it's not laziness, it's a bone deep fatigue and a sense of not really knowing who we are or what we can do because what we're doing isn't working. And what I am not as much an expert in burnout as I would like to be, but one thing I'm learning is that sometimes with autistic burnout, you have to just do something completely different. I have a friend who was a teacher and just experienced an awful episode of autistic burnout, and now she's a teacher's aide. She's a parasocial uh not parasocial, paraprofessional, sorry, a paraprofessional at a school, and she's a teacher's aide, and she loves it because she still gets to be with the kids, and she still gets to be active in the school and helping the kids to learn, but she doesn't have the responsibilities that she had that a teacher has that led to her autistic burnout.
Yeah. Have you faced your own autistic burnout and went through that yourself?
I burned out really badly as a writer. I was freelancing before I got hurt. I was freelancing and I was also writing my own books and including the Leonardo Trait. At about 9 or 10 months before I got hurt, I was talking about retiring because I was just so burned out and tired. And I did not write after I got hurt for about 5 years because I just couldn't do it. I knew I didn't have to do it professionally, but I just felt like I just could not sit down and write anything other than, say, an email or a letter. It just wouldn't come. And it did take me about 5 years to get to the point where I could start writing again.
Hmm.
5
So,
years is extreme.
yeah. Well, then you look at it another way and like your injury kind of was a blessing to let you recover and to get your mind right again and to deal with the burnout.
It really was. And because of my injury, I got a lot closer to my family. I have a lot more time for them, obviously, but I also had to start asking them for help more. And I had to be a lot more vulnerable with my husband and my kids who are adults now. And so I was able to build relationships with my children as adults that I might not have been able to build otherwise. It was really an amazing opportunity to get closer to my family and to have some time to really recover from my burnout, like you said.
Yeah. Why do you think so many people misunderstand it?
I think because people are looking at it and think that it's just regular professional burnout. And even a lot of neurodivergent people have not been taught about autistic burnout. And I think one of the best things that I can do as someone who has a platform is to talk about this and to say, hey, if you're feeling burnout, if you're feeling tired, if you're feeling like you don't have interest in things anymore, this might be neurodivergent burnout, and you should learn more about that and try to figure out if that's what is going on for you, and try to see how you can shift so that you can move out of that.
Yeah. What advice would you give to somebody who was going through autistic burnout?
I would say try to find a way to get as much rest as you can, because rest does help. But also try to find a way to move into your work in a way that it is not causing burnout. And that may mean, at least temporarily, doing something else.
Yeah. I I know when I went through my burnout in my own life, I had to find something else to do, and I felt like about a depression at times that I just need to walk away from a lot of people because it just brought me down.
Yeah, it's really, it's not just in your head. I mean, it is a brain thing, but it's also very much a body thing of the fatigue and the just everything feels wrong.
Yeah. You started the Unmasked Summit. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, the Unmasked Summit it's an email based summit. A lot of people will run summits and people will do video presentations. And I knew that with my physical limitations, I could not run that kind of summit. It was just too much work. And so what I decided to do was I thought, what if I did an email summit? I had never heard of it being done. As far as I know, this is the first email summit ever. And what I'm doing is my speakers are actually sending me written sessions. They send me an essay, and I am writing a reflection prompt for each essay. And 4 times a day during the summit, I will send out one session with the reflection prompt, and that's the summit. Is we're doing it completely by email, and then we're having a wrap party on the last day of the summit by Zoom, where people can come and meet the speakers, and the speakers can meet each other, and we can all chat. But there is no video aspect to it other than that, because I couldn't do anything else. And when I started talking to people about speaking, they got really excited. And people are excited about coming to it because they don't have to be anywhere at a specific time. And there's not a time limit on when they can access the information. So I'm really excited about it. I think it's going to be great.
Yeah. So instead of the speaker speaking, they just send you their speech, and you kind of write a reflection on that then and send it out by
Right.
email
Yeah.
to the participants. Huh. I've never heard about that. That's interesting.
I hope it will go really well. And I hope other people will start doing it in the future, because I think it's a very accessible way to do a summit.
Yeah. So did you just start doing these then?
This is the first one, and I just had the idea in, I think, November, and I started putting it together, and hopefully it's going to be a really good summit.
Nice. So What's the topics?
People are talking about unmasking and the burnout, about creativity in general. I've got a really good lineup of speakers. It's going to be really good.
Nice. Um, so how can people get more involved and maybe join the summit?
Well, everything I do is at my website, profoundcreativity.com. Did I say that right? Profoundcreativity.com. Yeah. And there's a link to the summit. There's a link to sign up for my newsletter. And a link to learn more about my book.
Nice. So is there plans in the work to do more summits, or is this a one-time thing, or you got a plan, maybe take a break for a little bit to kind of see what you did wrong and then make adjustments here a couple months later?
Yeah, I would like to do another one at least next year. Um, we'll see how this one goes, and like you said, make adjustments. And um, I would like to have more lead time before I do the next one. I kind of boxed myself in a little bit with this one. I thought it would take less time. I thought it would be easier to do in the amount of time I gave myself. So I'm going to be done. It's going to be fine. But next time I'll give myself a couple more months.
Yeah, we have a tendency, everybody has a tendency to like minimize how much work some of this stuff takes. Like you think you get them like unrealistic expectations of how quick you could do it. And it's like once you get started on it, it's like, man, I think I might have bit off more than I could chew.
Yeah, I definitely need more time, and I need to give other people more time to get their submissions in. I think I rushed my people a little bit, and I would like to give them more time in the future.
Yeah. And then with you running it, you got to wait on everybody else to get you all their stuff. So that puts you on a deadline too.
And they've all been great. They've all been great about getting everything in, and it's going really well. And we're gonna all of us together are gonna pull it off. And I could not have done it without my speakers being so great.
Awesome. Well, I wish you luck on that endeavor. It sounds very interesting.
Thank you.
Is there anything we haven't covered that you want to talk about?
I just want to say again, because I like to say this at least twice, that we are, as creative people, as neurodivergent people, we are not broken. We're not broken neurotypicals. We're not broken anything. And that who we are is more than enough. And we are never too much.
Yeah. Amen. All right. Final question. What is one piece of advice you'd like to leave our listeners with about overcoming adversity?
I think understanding that you are stronger than you think you are is one of my biggest pieces of advice. You can get through a lot more than you think you can. And somebody said to me recently that they have survived 100% of their bad days. And I just thought that was really good. And that I just want to say that, like I said, you're stronger than you think. And whatever it is, you're going to get through it.
Great advice. Well, Angie, I can't thank you enough for coming on here and sharing your insight and wisdom with all of us.
Well, thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Hey, not a problem. Well, guys, that's going to be all the time we have here today. Remember, the only way to get what you want is go through the fire.